It's Chef Bay. I'm so excited to have you here on my YouTube channel. I am the author of this amazing cookbook, Cook, Heal, Go Vegan. I'm also the host of the Plant Remedy podcast. You'll find all things podcast, cookbook, healing, wellness, recipes, all things vegan on this YouTube site. And I'm just so excited to have you here. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them below and I will personally answer them myself. And if you want to find out more about me, you can do so on all these social channels here. If you love this video, I would be so grateful if you could like and comment and subscribe to my channel, and of course share with a friend if you think it would resonate with them. I hope you enjoy this video and I'll see you soon.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Plant Remedy Pod. It's your host, Chef Bay. I'm so excited to have you here. If it's your first time listening, I am a professional chef as well as a cookbook author, a podcast host, obviously, hello, and a dog mom. Definitely a dog mom. Should have put that first on the list. And I'm also an endometriosis warrior and an advocate for women's health and human rights and environmental wellness and animal welfare and all those things that we should all really be talking about right now. So I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so grateful that you're here. Whew, man, it's been a week and I don't think I'm really going to go into it, but I just want to be a reminder to take care of your heart and to take deep breaths when you need them. I think a lot of times we go through life forgetting just to breathe, right? So just breathe, right? And just breathe it out. Be nice to people that you come across. We're all going through it. And call your local senators and demand change. It's basically what we can do right now. So yeah, I mean, it's easy to feel powerless in the state of the world, but I think it's important to just take it day by day, action by action, conversation by conversation. And hopefully we can all be a little bit more aware, a little more loving, and a little bit more actionable than we were the day before. And that's what this podcast is all about, to bring awareness, have conversations, and to just and create the change that we want to see in the world. So yeah, if you're having a rough week, I know a lot of us are having a rough week. I'm here with you and I'm here for you. And I'm always open if you ever want to reach out and chat with me on Instagram at chef_bay. I'm here for you guys. And yeah, this is all community. It's all about being together here with each other. And I personally have been going through some shit in my personal life, in my family life. We're all just moving through stuff. It's an intense time in the world. But I think it's also like a gift to be born right now, because I'm born right now, but to be alive right now, because, we have this immense capacity to change the collective consciousness, to change the way things are going, to change how we treat each other. And although it may feel so overwhelming and like nothing's going to change, so many things have changed and will continue to, as long as we keep moving the dial. We don't give up on each other, which I think is the most important part, is to not give up on each other. So yeah, that's it, you guys. I'm so excited for this podcast episode with Rip. I was on his show a few months ago and it was just so much fun chatting with him. So we did a pod swap and it was nice to have him on the show. I actually have learned a lot from his dad, and I just love following him and his whole family. Their story is incredibly inspiring. And yeah, talk about leaders of the plant-based movement. I'm just forever inspired, forever in awe of the Esselstyns, and just really grateful for this interview and this podcast and this opportunity. And of course, y'all, I'm grateful for you because you guys make this show possible. And season 3 is off to a really amazing start so far. So yes, before we get into it, we actually do not have a sponsor for the show, because I have a free download on my website right now. As you guys know, or if you're new, I'll let you guys know right now. I am an endometriosis warrior, which basically just means that I have been dealing with endometriosis my whole life. It's something that affects 1 in 10 women or 1 in 10 people who experience a menstrual cycle. And it's rough stuff, man. And people who go through and have endometriosis, have period pains, have PCOS, there's this narrative that period pain is normal, and it's not normal, you guys. It might be we're used to it, and there might be a lot of people who have it, but it should not be normal. So I'm on a mission to basically help liberate women from their periods, and in the sense of just creating a platform and creating space to educate. And, things that I went searching for over a decade, I've just kind of decided to put it all into one place. So I have a little free download right now on my website. You just go to my website, www.chefbae.kitchen. It's a pop-up. It'll show up right there. And it's a free download for 6 easy hacks that you can use through your food to have a better, less painful period. So even if you're a guy and you're listening to this, or you don't experience a period, definitely send it over to someone. It's 100% free. And it's just my little gift to the community, because I feel like with everything going on in the news right now and everything happening politically, women and people who experience periods need to be lifted, and we all need to kind of come together to create period health, because women who are liberated from their period pains and who do not suffer like this are truly unstoppable. And I can say that because I was someone who thought that, I thought my period was literally going to be the death of me. And overcoming that has completely changed my life. It's the whole reason this podcast exists. It's the whole reason I wrote my book. It's the whole reason I'm able to work for myself and be successful. And I think everyone deserves a chance at that. So again, go to www.chefbae.kitchen for the free download. And yeah, that's it. Love you guys so much. Let's get into this episode with Rip. You're going to love it. All right, guys, what's up? I am sitting here with Rip Esselstyn. I'm so excited for this show. He is the author of The Engine 2 Diet and the host of the Plantstrong podcast and the creator of Plantstrong. Thank you so much for being here.
You are so welcome. And it's nice to be on your show, because I appreciate you coming on my show. God, it must have been 2-3 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, it went live last month, I think, but yeah, it was really fun. I love doing the podcast swap to kind of switch seats with each other.
Well, yes. And it's really nice, actually, sometimes not having to put so much brain power into listening really hard and asking all the perfect questions. And so I see this as a nice respite for me, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, totally. I love asking all the questions and doing all the things. This is just the beginning of a brand new season for us. So I'm dusting off my podcast cobwebs, and I'm just so happy to have you here. It's actually been a dream of mine to have you on the show for a long time. So
nice.
I'm stoked.
So you said this is a new season. What season is this?
This is season 3, although season 1 was really long. I think after season 1, I was I think I need to season this out, because doing this all the time, every single week, is too much. So I decided to kind of make it 12 to 15 shows per season. And it's been nice because it gives you some time in between to just kind of figure out your new flow for the next season and find guests and also have a life in between the podcasts. Do you season out your show?
Yes, and we had a theme to each season.
Oh, good.
And but now I'm moving away from doing seasons. I like the seasons for the first 3 years that I was doing the podcast.
Yeah.
But then I would take a break, and then I don't know about you, but I find in my life, if I take a break from things, sometimes it's hard for me to get the momentum back.
Totally.
Right? Yeah. And so I'd prefer now to just keep rolling along. I'm doing away with the seasons, and just keeping it nice and steady. So, you do what feels right for you. And, this evolved to where we decided to do away with the seasons. But yeah, there's pluses and minuses for both.
Yeah, totally. Well, and the cool thing about podcasting is there's no rules. You can kind of just do whatever you want. So that's really great.
Absolutely.
I know, it's kind of the Wild West.
Yeah. Yeah. But like for the first season that I did, I had maybe 25 episodes, and it was all around, every show was around trying to help out this New York City firefighter named Joe Inga, who came on the show. It was like the second or third episode, but I hadn't aired anything yet. And he was so honest about his struggle with alcoholism, with food, with the guys at his firehouse in New York City not accepting him for eating this way. And all of a sudden, like I was down in New York City filming, or interviewing Eric Adams. This is before he was, the mayor of New York City.
Yeah.
Let's see. A handful of rock and roll stars, John Joseph, Victoria Moran, you name it. And I got this guy, and we were just like, oh my God, let's have the whole season be around Joe Inga, and how everybody, in helping Joe out, you're also helping every, Tom, Dick, and Harry and Jane that's out there.
Right. Totally.
And so it worked really well for season 1. And so we tried to replicate that a little bit in season 2, and it didn't work quite as well. Anyway, yeah, I'm trying to remember why I even told you that story, but
we were just talking about podcasting.
Yeah. But yeah, you said like, there's no rules, which is really, really nice. And yeah, and then sometimes you stumble into something that you weren't expecting, and you bring it to life, like we did with Joe Inga in season 1. And you find like pure gold.
Yeah, I didn't listen to any of those, so I'm gonna have to like go back and check that out, because that sounds really interesting, and a really great resource for the clients that I work with to listen to something like that, to feel inspired by someone other than themselves or me.
Yeah. And then almost every episode there would be a little check-in with Joe as well, to see how he's doing. And what I challenged him, because he was saying how he had just been a couch potato. Literally the most activity that he would do, or he had done in the last almost 10 years that he was a firefighter, was to go on calls. He had some young children at home, and he wasn't doing any kind of exercise, weightlifting, anything like that. So I challenged him to do a triathlon in 6 months. And so usually every episode we did a little check-in with Joe to see how his training was going, what was he doing well? What was he, slipping up on? And at the end of the season, I invited him out to the Esselstyn family farm in upstate New York, about a 2.5 hour drive from Manhattan, where he lived and worked. And he came up there. We threw a very impromptu triathlon. We swam in the lake. We did a mountain bike ride around the hills.
Yeah.
It's like 500 acres. And then it was about a 1.5 2-mile run. So in total, it took like an hour. And he was a rock star. He finished, and we had the speakers out, and we were playing the Rocky theme song when he was running down the finishing stretch. And he was so pumped up and excited about it that as soon as he crossed the finish line, he was just hurling all over the place.
No,
he left it all out on the course.
No. Oh my God.
Yes.
That's how it did its job.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I think, like, speaking of firefighters, I like to backtrack a lot. Like, I obviously discovered you. I talked to you about this before from your TED Talk. So inspiring for me. Actually, when I was going plant-based, I swear I had your voice in the back of my head, like, the whole time. Cause I was like, well, this TED Talk was so inspiring. Like, if he could get firefighters to do it, because I know that firefighters are very stubborn. I've actually, I'll had fire stations ask me to work with them and to kind of like try to change the narrative. I have a girlfriend who's an EMT firefighter who like really wants to be plant-based, but she got, transitioned to a different station and she like couldn't do it. Like she said, she was getting bullied and like she had to just eat whatever they were eating. So I'm wondering if you're still working with firefighters or if that's just something that like naturally falls into what you're doing, or have you moved on from that? Or I'd love to kind of talk a little bit.
No, I don't
about
want to.
that.
I don't want to ever move on from working with emergency first responders, whether it's EMT, whether it's firefighters, police. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2019, I did an event with the city of Pittsburgh with their emergency first responders. So EMTs, police, fire, and we had, I don't know, maybe 150 or so that showed up, and I challenged them to take the 7-day rescue challenge. They had some support from the city to do the biometric screenings so they could see what would happen just in 7 days. And we have all this on, we filmed it all, and it was really inspirational, so much so that they want to do it again this year, now that, COVID is out of the way. And they're looking to get 350 different people to do it. And I'll be doing that in just a couple of weeks.
Wow, how cool. That's
and then
awesome.
And then also just got off the phone with Rachel Atchison, who is on Eric Adams' team in New York City, the mayor. And we're talking about ways of me coming in there and working with the New York City firefighters to kind of get them more plant strong. What a lot of people don't realize is firefighters are some of the unhealthiest kind of superheroes that are out there. And your average firefighter is probably 20 to 40 pounds overweight. Many of them are pre-diabetic. They work in a incredibly toxic food environment. Whereas your friend just said, the pressure to eat what everybody else is eating is real. It is as real as when you were growing up and you had some of maybe your friends in the neighborhood trying to get you to drink alcohol or, try dope, or, just do drugs. And you have to have a lot of self-awareness, and you have to have the courage of your convictions to basically say, you know what, I'm going to pass on this. And you do it in a way that's, hopefully not offensive, and it doesn't create too much friction between you and the team, like what happened with Joe Inga and his guys. And, finally, Joe was able to let him know, hey, listen, I'm doing this for health reasons, right? I mean, my cholesterol is through the roof. I am, for my height, I am considered morbidly obese. I love this job. I don't want to be a liability to my crew. And what happens, and this is one of the reasons why I might be going and working with the New York City firefighters, is if your BMI gets too high, if your blood pressure gets too elevated, if your fasting blood sugar reaches a level that makes you either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, you're in jeopardy of not being in operations anymore, meaning you can't ride on the fire engine, the fire truck, and you have to go and you do a desk job, right? Or you work in training or something like that.
Yeah.
So these are potentially some very motivated men and women that really are probably going to be very excited to hear about ways that they can radically transform their health just by changing what they eat, and then allowing them to stay right in operations. And we now know that the number one cause of in the line of duty deaths for firefighters is heart attacks, right? And these guys and gals, they go from 0 to 100 in literally, a minute or two, and then they're expected to perform, Herculean tasks. And if you're eating ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if you're doing, fajitas for dinner, you're doing big burgers for breakfast, and you're doing sausage and eggs for breakfast. And I mean, it's something's got to give up the ghost. And that's why what I have discovered is that most firefighters gain between 5 to 8 pounds every year on the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
After 10 years, that's a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I went through some guys in the fire academy, and 10 years later, they were between 75 to 100 pounds what they were in the academy.
Wow.
No
That's
joke.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And unfortunately, there's no stipulation as far as, how much you have to work out on the shift. A lot of these guys that get into the station, and, as human beings, there is so much inertia, and if you're not in a fire station, a firehouse that makes working out and eating healthy a priority, you're going to default to sitting on the lazy boy, playing video games, watching, Harry Potter version number 5 for the 18th time.
Yeah, I was going to say that for the 10th time.
You're going to be playing, cards. You're going to be sitting in that lazy boy, eating chips with salsa, with some guacamole, and it's not good.
No. And I mean, I even know for myself, right? When I'm not eating healthier, I fall off my like super healthy wagon, which is still healthy, I would say, for most people. But, my ability to respond to stress is much less when I'm not taking like the utmost care of myself, right? It's so much harder to show up and deal with drama and family things and stress or whatever, life, the world is stressful actually in general right now. But it's so much harder to deal with stress when you're not feeling well or when you're not, doing well for your body. And I think the reality is most people don't know how good they can feel, right? They don't know what feeling good feels like. So it's kind of this like maintaining this level 4 out of 10 all the time. And I'm sure you've seen this, like once they get to a level 7 or a level 8, they're like, oh my gosh, like I can operate so much better. Like my life is so much better now.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how much at a higher frequency we can function at when we're doing all the little things right. We're eating a clean, whole food, plant strong diet. We're not abusing screens. We're getting to bed on time. We're moving our bodies. So we're in tune with that. Hopefully we're getting out in nature a couple times a week. So we're grounded. And if you're into it, you follow some sort of a spiritual meditative practice as well to really help center yourself. And you do those things, and it's pretty incredible what you can do when the shit hits the fan, when you're dealt with a lot of stress is thrown at you, and you don't crumble.
Exactly.
Right? And you figure out ways to get the job done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of, it's funny, like the other day, and I don't know why, but I got a tummy ache. And it was right before dinner. It started coming on, and then I had dinner. I think we had vegetarian fajitas, and then I had a little bit of a bowl of cereal for dessert, and I was so miserable. I had to go up and just lie down in our bed, and it eventually passed, but it took about 3 hours. And it made me think, when was the last time that I either had some sort of a tummy ache, constipation, diarrhea? And I honestly, it probably has been a decade.
Wow.
I mean, and it just made me realize, oh my gosh, I remember as a kid having to deal with a lot of gastrointestinal issues because obviously I ate the standard American diet. I can remember, just some miserable nights on the John, with my stomach just churning.
Yeah, totally.
And whenever I got like this, I would go up into my parents' bathroom, and hanging on the back of the bathroom door was my mother's kind of bathrobe. and I would put it up to my face because the smell of it and everything, I needed that in order to relax a little bit. And so that's what the other night when I had this stomach ache, it took me right back to when I was like maybe 12, 13 years old. And I was up in my parents' bathroom with my face buried in my mother's bathrobe.
Oh my God, those feelings, I totally know what you're talking about. It's just that like, yeah, I had actually really bad heartburn the other day. I was traveling and I never grew up with heartburn or anything. I think this is like a getting older thing, but I had really bad heartburn and I was like, oh my God. And I ate like a vegan takeout deep dish pizza or something and had some wine. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. Like, I can't imagine having heartburn all the time because it's like debilitating. It was like, I felt like my chest had like a blowtorch to it. And I just really feel for those people that are dealing with that constantly. And it's like, there really is a way out. Like, there's a way out other than like taking down Tums or whatever, there's a better way out that like can really help you from getting that consistently.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how many people are on that little purple pill, supposedly for the rest of their lives because they have, esophageal, reflux or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that if you were to read like Will Bolshewitz's book, Fiber Fueled,
love it.
And you'd realize in a second that so many of these gastrointestinal issues, heartburn, all this stuff is just change what you're eating and this will resolve itself.
Exactly. It's so instant. Okay. I have like a couple follow-up questions to everything that we just talked about.
Yeah.
I like really want to talk about your parents because your parents fascinate me. I like follow them and I follow when you post about them. I think they're like so funny. And so I'm wondering, so your childhood, you guys all didn't grow up on the Plantstrong diet. So I'm kind of wondering how that transition happened and what it was like to grow up with your parents. Because great.
Well, it was an idyllic childhood.
I bet.
And I was the oldest of 4 kids.
Okay.
And there were 4 of us that were 4.5 years apart.
Wow.
Right? That's pretty darn close together. So I have a younger brother, 2 younger brothers, one Ted, who's 11 months younger than I am, a sister Jane, who's 2.5 years younger than I am, and then another brother Zeb, who's 4.5 years younger than I am.
Just didn't waste any time.
Yeah. And it was a fabulous childhood. And, very privileged, right? I mean, my father was a surgeon. So we got to take some very beautiful vacations. Most of those were ski vacations.
Cool.
So we would go and we would ski as a family, and that was starting at a young age. But my father, well, let me just say that growing up, we ate anything and everything under the sun, but there were 2 things that my parents did not allow in the house, and that was soda pop and white bread, right? Ever. And so, but we did lamb chops and steaks and spare ribs, and BLTs and, eggs and bacon, you name it. We were just as naughty as everybody else that was out there. But then that all changed in 1984 when my father decided to start his research at the Cleveland Clinic, showing that, you could actually prevent and reverse heart disease just by changing what you eat. And he had obviously done a deep dive into a lot of different cultures that were out there that were almost impervious to breast cancer, prostate cancer, heart disease, hypertension. And the common denominator with all these cultures, of course, they were all predominantly plant-based. And so he in 1984 started this research, and he started with like 22 patients. And when he did it, he told my mother, hey, if I'm going to ask, these patients to do this, then by God, we're going to do this as well.
Yeah, of course.
Just so we can understand their plight and and understand the lifestyle that we're stepping into. And remember, he was working with patients who most of them had end stage heart disease, which means you've got about a year to live, year or under, because the heart disease is so advanced. There's nothing more that, modern medicine can do for you. No more stents, angioplasties, bypass operations. And so these people were literally at death's door. And my father kind of said, hey, let's do this crazy radical thing where we just kind of eat a bunch of plants.
In the 80s too, which is like,
oh yeah. 84.
Yeah.
And you know how this story ends, I'm sure, but these patients went on, and boy, you know what? They lived past a year and 2 years and 3 years and 4 years. And they lived, most of them, another 15 to 20 years. And when they started dying in their 90s, they weren't dying of heart disease. They weren't dying of major cancers. They were dying of other causes. And so it was really kind of miraculous back then what he was able to do with these initial core 22 patients. And, he's been written up in 7 different peer-reviewed medical pieces of literature. And he is since, he literally has worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, from, the former fast food president, Bill Clinton, to Samuel L. Jackson, to a host of other very, very famous people who, they've heard about his work at the Cleveland Clinic. And in his late 80s, he is still working at the Cleveland Clinic. He is currently the director of the Cardiovascular Disease Prevention and Reversal Program at the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute.
Wow.
Yeah. And so twice a month, he meets with usually 20 patients and their spouses. And it's usually a 5 to 6 hour seminar where he goes over everything they need to do to take control of this disease that has really paralyzed their lives.
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's funny because I was like so inspired by you and your TED Talk and all the things that you were doing. And then I learned about your dad, but at the time I didn't know he was your dad. And I was doing research on his studies and listening to his talks and all these things. And then I don't know, something clicked about 8 months ago. And I was like, wait, they're related? This is insane. This is so cool.
You didn't think that Esselstyn and Esselstyn, you never,
you never know. I don't know. I was just kind of they were these two separate worlds in my mind. And all of a sudden I was like, this is genius. This is so amazing.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. And then the other thing, kind of going back to, is a lot of people have asked me, did you ever want to rebel against eating this? Right. Because of the stance that your father and kind of your mother took. And I always say, no, not in the least. I adored and cherished my parents and love and respect them so much. And when I found out that my father was going down this path, I was one of his biggest fans.
I love that.
And was cheering him on and always asking him, so what's the latest? Because he was really excited to perform his first angiogram, before and after angiogram, because all these patients had before angiograms, but really the litmus test to show is, are these patients able to halt this disease, or in many cases able to actually metabolize away these plaque formations? You can determine it on an angiogram where they, shoot a dye in through the clogged vessels, and you can see a year or 2 years later what kind of erosion has occurred in the left anterior descending artery. And he was able to actually show that for the first time in 1991, 10% erosion of the plaque formation. And then he's going on since then to basically show that, with some of his patients, they go from being 90% blocked to 2.5 years later, it is as clean as a whistle.
Wow.
Right? But that doesn't happen with everyone. That typically happens with these heart disease patients that are much younger in age, and they don't have the calcification. So when you have the calcification, you basically have the fatty lesions and the cholesterol and all this stuff that basically turns to like rock. And you're not gonna metabolize away that rock. But if it's the cholesterol and the fatty lesions, you can actually clear that out. The body is just, it's such a amazing miracle what we're able to do when we're fueling it with the right foods. And so, yeah, like this one patient, Joe Crow, who was a fellow surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic at the age of 42, while doing surgery, fell over dead, right? They were able to shock him back to life, and he couldn't take statin medicines. And because of the location of where his blockage was in his left anterior descending artery, he was not a candidate for any kind of a stent. So he approached my father and said, "Hey, I want to do your program." And 2.5 years later, completely like clean as a whistle.
Wow.
Right. And again, my father has gone on to do this with literally hundreds of patients. And so we now know, in 2022, that the most powerful way to treat the number one killer in America and in, Western countries is, it's not stents, it's not statins, it's not bypasses. It is fruits and vegetables and steel cut oats and lots of green leafy vegetables that are loaded with nitrates, right? And that's what you do. That's the protocol. And you do it 3 times a day.
Yes, every time you're hungry. So, okay, so I'm going to flip the script for a second. So you talked about you rebelling against your parents. I find now that we're in this era of time where we're becoming more educated on food, and I feel like younger generations are becoming more educated. I'm finding now that I'm hearing a lot of stories, and I personally have dealt with this, of parents and family members rebelling against their kids in the idea of like, they have health issues going on. They know that there's this option of going plant-based, but they just don't want to do it because of, they feel like something's being taken away from them, or they feel like, it's like this just idea of like, they just don't want to give up that, maybe their tradition or their culture or whatever. So what advice would you have for those people who are trying to encourage their family members to eat a more plant-strong diet, who are super resistant, even though they may know like the evidence and the science behind it? What's the advice that you would give?
Well, that's a really good question. And the answer is not simple, right? Because every relationship you have, whether it's with a parent or a friend or an aunt or an uncle, has, in my opinion, needs to be nuanced depending upon your relationship with them, what kind of friction is there or not there, and how to approach them so they can actually hear you, right? And not rebel against you. So, if it was somebody that was really competitive that was doing this, I would say, when they're like, "I don't want to eat this way," I say, "Yeah, you shouldn't. You probably couldn't do it." Right.
Yeah.
And it's not for everyone. Right. So you kind of take it away from them. Right.
Yeah.
We have, who Dr. Doug Lisle is? So he wrote The Pleasure Trap. He's a brilliant evolutionary psychologist.
Yeah.
And he recommends this seams strategy, where, you don't want to go in guns a-blazing, trying to tell everybody, you got to do this. This is like the best thing since sliced bread. Oh my God. You're like trying to preach a new religion to them. Right. And of course they're going to turn their backs on you, but you kind of wait for the opportune moment. And then you say, I stumbled upon this really interesting way of eating, and it seems to be working for me. Probably not right for everyone, but it seems to be working for me. And so something about this, using the word seems, it doesn't make you like all knowing and this is the way, it allows a little bit of, room, cushion for them to explore a little bit on their own too. Seems to be working for me. You actually might consider, like, I don't know if you haven't done it, watching the Game Changers or Forks Over Knives, or picking up this radical book about this doctor in Cleveland that was able to show that he could reverse heart disease in these patients. And so it's going to be a little bit different. I can tell you that I've had some people that are incredibly close to me that have access to me, to my father, my family, that have chosen not to embrace this and are now dead. Right. And this isn't just one or two. This is like a number of people that just, for whatever reason, and I'll say they're caught in the pleasure trap, which is what the book that Doug Lisle talks about, where for a lot of people, it's not easy to eat a whole food, plant-based diet, even though it is our natural food, right? Because of all the hyper palatable foods that are now out there that have so much salt, sugar, and fat that have been put in them that it's like a drug, right? And then you go back to an orange or an apple or steel cut oats, and you're like, really? You want me to eat this flavorless crap? And I can have Doritos, and I can have, these TV dinners,
burgers,
and burgers loaded, with this and that. And I can have pizza that's got 3 pounds of cheese on it. So, they have to be willing to be educated and informed that, you know what, you don't even know this, but you are smack dab in the middle of the pleasure trap. You are at a low level addicted to these foods. And what's going to save you is eschewing those foods and embracing these. And so you somehow have to figure out a way to make them see the light. And even when they've seen the light, sometimes it's hard. This is why, to me, you don't want to have these foods in the house. You want to do everything you can to have a very pure environment. So, as Dan Buettner likes to say, the easy choice is the healthy choice.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, it's definitely hard, like knowing people that have passed or that are super sick that just don't want to do it. Cause at the end of the day, you really can't force them, right? You have to let them choose their own path.
I have a person on my podcast team who she just flew home to Ohio yesterday. And I was doing a little FaceTime with her. And she said, Rip, it's beyond depressing here. And I said, why is that? She said, my father is losing his mind. And he has already eaten 5 large Hershey bars. And this woman has been plant-based for over a decade. It has transformed her life. She used to be overweight and not very healthy. And she just is at her wit's end. She's kind of given up. She's like, listen, my father, he's early 90s. And at this point, I'm not going to change him. I can't really help my mother because my mother doesn't know how to cook this way and she doesn't want to learn. So unfortunately, you can't make people do something they don't want to do. But what I have always been amazed at is sometimes the people that I think, oh my gosh, this person is so going to do this, and they don't do it. And then people that you never in your wildest dreams thought would do it, they totally embrace it. Yeah. So for that reason, I never will not talk to somebody, but again, I got to figure out what is the right approach and strategy with this person.
The right angle. Are you going to angle this conversation? And
I can tell you with firefighters, for example, wow. I mean, it took me, it took me a good 6 years before I was able to penetrate those guys in that culture. And and I wasn't loud. I wasn't obnoxious. I just set a nice example. And then when one of my fellow firefighting brothers, who I've been working with for 6 years, when he got this elevated cholesterol of 344 at the age of 33, not only was he ripe to explore this new radical lifestyle, but so were the other guys at the firehouse, because the firehouse truly is my second family, my second home. And these are my brothers and sisters, and the bonding and the level of love and unity that is there with people that you have worked with for some of these people, 5, 6, 7 years, and you're there 24 hours on, 48 hours off, and you go into burning buildings together. You go to car accidents where you're actually pulling dead people out of cars. You see the worst and the best in humanity. It does insane things to bring you together.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we were all on board, and it was really cool. But again, it took it took 6 years for that kind of transformation to happen at Fire Station 2.
So that's commitment. So anyone listening that is like wanting to help someone change, I think like patience is key. And just understanding the relationship and just going at it in the best, like softest way that you can. Right?
Yeah. And just with the right intention and being as authentic as you can with it.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
So let's transition a little bit because we talked a lot about Engine 2 and that whole side. I want to talk about Plantstrong. I want to talk about your food brand. I want to talk about all that stuff, which is actually, I've had all these weird revelations with like you and your dad. And one of the other ones is seeing your vegetable broth, because as a chef, I have this, I look at processed foods, and vegetable broth in times I consider a processed food, depending on what's in it. I look at it and I am amazed at all of the crap that is in all of these foods that are seemingly healthy. It's very deceiving, and vegetable broth is one of those things that I'm constantly talking about. I've been talking about it even before I was plant-based. I was like, why are they packing vegetable broths with canola oil and high fructose corn syrup and red dye 40 and all of this stuff? And then I saw I was somewhere really random and I needed vegetable broth, and yours was the only one there that didn't have all this stuff in it. And I was like, oh my God, this is Rip's veggie broth. How random. He has a vegetable broth. So I'd love to talk about kind of how you transition into a food product and like what inspired you to do that.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to about 2009.
Okay.
So I wrote my first book, The Engine 2 Diet. It came out. And then a couple months later, the CEO of Whole Food Market Stores, John Mackey, who was on his own personal journey with eating a whole food plant-based diet, he emailed me saying, hey, loved your book, would love to kind of grab some food together and get to know each other. And so we did. And after a couple months, he said, Rip, I want to make you an offer. I'd love for you to come be a healthy eating ambassador for Whole Food Market Stores, teach our team members. And at the time, there were 100,000 team members, right? There's now about 512 Whole Food Market Stores in the United States. At the time, there was maybe 420. And so go around, you would travel a lot, go to the stores, talk to our team members, talk to our customers, did a lot of customer facing presentations. And then we'd also love to do a food line that carries all of your tenants. It would be a Whole Food Market private label brand. So it would only be available in Whole Food Market stores. And you would actually get to sign off on every product that would have to have your stamp of approval. And so I retired from firefighting after 12 years
Wow, what a great opportunity.
to take on this opportunity of really, helping people and saving lives to a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people say, oh my gosh, do you miss firefighting? I'm like, listen, I miss so many things about firefighting, but this ability to use whole food market stores as a bully pulpit
Mm-hmm.
to broadcast this life-saving message, I wasn't going to pass it up. Right.
Of
And
course not.
I knew it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so that's what I did. I mean, I spent the last 10 years working with whole food market stores to elevate everything about eating a whole food plant-based diet. We also led 7-day medical immersion programs starting in 2010 for Whole Food Market's unhealthiest team members.
Wow.
That had to medically qualify to attend. And if they did, Whole Foods would pay the everything. They would pay for them to go either to Sedona, Arizona, or Black Mountain, North Carolina, and partake in one of these kind of food camps, right? And we did yoga, we did CrossFit, we did hikes in the morning, great big wonderful plant-based breakfast, lunches, and dinners. World-class presenters like Colin Campbell, my father,
The
John
best.
Robbins.
Yes.
Yeah, you name it. The Sarnow brothers would come and speak. And then at nighttime, it was stargazing, movie night, play night. It literally was camp for adults, right?
Love
Food
it.
camp for adults. It was awesome. But so I did 10 years of that. And then that came to a close in January of 2020. That was a 10-year contract. And so I was given the brand back, and I decided and the brand was called Engine 2.
Right.
Named after the firehouse where this whole thing started. And so I was like, Engine 2 will always have an incredible soft spot in my heart. But going forward in the advancement of all things plant-based, because keep in mind, when I started this brand in 2010, plant-based wasn't a thing.
No.
It wasn't even close to being a thing. And
sure wasn't.
We were the only completely plant-based brand on the shelves. We were considered radical, like a decade before our time.
Oh, totally.
And so I now have pivoted from Engine 2. The new brand is called Plantstrong. We carry all the same tenets when it comes to being whole food, plant-based, little to no added sugars, little to no added sodium. Same thing with fats. We don't do any added oils. We want our fats to be less than 25%, all coming from whole food, plant-based food, fat sources. But our mission is to create the most nutritious, delicious, and convenient plant-based foods on the planet. And we've got granolas. We have got no added oil, right? I mean, no added oil, no added sugars. We just use whole fruit. We have the Rips Big Bowl cereals. We have now 4 different varieties of that. We've got a microwavable popcorn that doesn't have any added oils.
Oh my gosh.
Sugar, right? It's really clean. We've got, you mentioned the veggie stock that it was at Whole Foods. That was our number 1 bestseller. So we still have that. That actually now looks like this.
Okay.
Plantstrong veggie broth. And then we also have a mushroom broth. And this is, as far as I know, it's the only no added sodium veggie, mushroom, shiitake mushroom broth on the shelves. This is one of our best sellers. We've got chilies, we've got stews, and this is in a category that is notorious for being insanely high in sodium.
So high.
Right? Broths typically have typically 300 to 500 milligrams of sodium per serving. Ours has 5 to 15, depending upon which one it is. Same thing with these chilies and stews. Most have 500 to 990 per serving. Ours have 180 to 260.
Wow, that's so amazing. Yeah, I don't think people realize like how much sodium is in those, especially like the soups that you can get, even though they seemingly look healthy and they're in the pretty packaging and they say organic. There's a lot of sodium there. And like, especially if you're dealing with, high blood pressure or something where it's like you really got to watch your sodium levels, like it can really sneak up on you.
It really can. And this is why I truly believe that what we are creating at Plantstrong, it is a very important dietary need state. I look at this as food as medicine.
Yes.
And
totally.
And you just mentioned, like right now, over 25% of American adults are on some sort of a hypertensive medication because their blood pressure is too high. Yeah. And this is 100% because of what they're eating and because of the ridiculous amounts of sodium they're consuming, somewhere probably in the neighborhood of 3,500 to 7,000 milligrams of sodium a day. And according to the Institute of Medicine, we want that to be 2,000 or below. And we actually prefer that you're 1,500 milligrams a day or below. And you're not going to get that way if you're eating packaged, canned, and bagged
fast
goods,
food. Yeah.
and you don't know how to read a label.
Oh my God. That's like the first thing I always teach. And it's so funny because at first you spend a lot of time reading labels. Like it feels obsessive. I know when I first told my parents, I love to always talk about my parents because they're just like the ultimate, example. But like when I first talk about it when I first was like, okay, we got to read labels. This is how it is, blah, blah, blah. And this is also with all my clients, everyone I work with, but it's like, they're always saying like, I just feel obsessive. Like this feels ridiculous. I'm just at the grocery store for twice as long. I'm reading labels, but it gets to a point where like, you just eventually understand and know what works and what doesn't work and what labels, like, you read a brand and you're like, okay, I'm no longer going to purchase this brand because clearly this is not good for me, and vice versa with other brands like Plantstrong, for instance. That it's going to be low sodium, it's going to be no oil. So you don't have to obsessively read the labels when you see that brand Plantstrong because you just know that it's going to be good. You can trust it. But the obsessive label reading can actually be one of the best things that you can do if you spend that extra time at the grocery store, because it's like you're putting yourself back in school. You're educating yourself about the food that you're eating, and it's you have to do it. There's no way around it.
Well, it's amazing to me how many people also think they know how to read a label and they have no idea how to read a label.
Yeah, that's true.
So I have actually a whole chapter in two of my books, one in the Engine 2 diet and one in the Engine 2 7-day rescue diet, where I walk through starting with fat, then sodium, then sugars, and then is this a whole grain or not? So basically 4 different criteria. And in literally less than 20 seconds, you can turn it over and you'll be able to read that label and know if it should stay on the shelf or go into your basket. And it's something that I would encourage people to become literate in, because it can literally help save your life.
Totally.
And again, the goal of these companies is to make you a repeat buyer. And they do that by putting copious amounts of salt, sugar, and fat. And you will sometimes find 6 different types of sugar in there. You'll find 5 different types of oil. You will find they'll scream that it's a whole grain, and then the first ingredient is unbleached something or other, right? Or it is just wheat flour, which is a telltale sign that this is a poser.
Right.
So,
or if it's filled with like gums, which can, like gums and like different preservative stabilizers are also known to cause like IBS and all of these gastrointestinal issues. And it's kind of like, if something needs a ton of stabilizers just to be shelf stable, I mean, just imagine what that's going to do to your gut, to like, those stabilizers moving through your gut is going to be like a little bit rough, So if you're having, gut issues in that sense, and you're like, well, I feel like I'm eating healthy things, but you're also buying, for instance, like Oatly is a great example. That milk brand has so many stabilizers in there. It also has oil. Oatly is like, it's packaged really well and it seems like a great option, but at the end of the day, like, it's just going to like rip through your gut and not make you feel good, even though you think you're making a good choice. So I feel like consumers can feel like they're being lied to, but we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
You always got to look under the hood, see what's going on.
Always got to look under the hood. Okay, I have one more question, and then I'm going to do a speed round where I'm just going to ask
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my final question is, I have a lot of like my audience for this podcast is people aged of like 25 to 44. And there's a lot of people who are interested in entrepreneurship and kind of like starting a brand or starting something that can help change the world. And so I'm wondering, that's what you're doing right now. You're, changing the world in your little slice and your little way. And so I'm wondering what advice you would give to people who want to start entrepreneurship or start a brand or start something that impacts the world in some way, whether they're just starting out or they're feeling stuck. Like, do you have any advice? Because you have so many different things that you do, and I feel like you'd be the perfect person to ask this question.
Yeah. So it's funny because I never thought of myself as being kind of a business guy or entrepreneurial,
Yeah,
but I've definitely landed in a place where I am doing that. Right.
totally. Yeah.
And I would tell you that the last 2 years have been some of the hardest of my life.
Mm.
Right. When I was with Whole Foods, I got to use the Whole Food Market machine, and I was just plugging into them. I had access to all the photography, the lawyers, the different the supply chain experts, warehousing, you name it. Right.
Right.
And so I didn't have a very good grasp of how hard food
Yeah.
is. And I would tell anybody out there that if you want to go into the food business, think long and hard before you go into it, because it will suck you dry. It will challenge you in ways you never imagined. Every time you turn around, there is another fire that you need to put out. The supply chain these days is an absolute bear. Costing is going up through the roof. It is, for a startup in the food business, it is almost borderline impossible to make it, right?
Yeah.
Now, the caveat to there, I will say, is in retail, right? I mean, people don't understand. In order to get on the shelves of most retailers, you have to pay slotting fees. So you have to pay a certain amount of money just to get on the shelf. And sometimes your return on that investment isn't for 2 to 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Right. And you have to be selling a certain number of units in each store per week in order to deliver a positive return on that investment. The trucking cost, the warehousing cost, the competition to get in the best places on the shelves, the number of promos that they expect you to do that is going to drain your coffers. It is never ending. Never ending.
Nuts. Yeah.
So I will tell you, retail is a bitch. Now, if you have a product and it makes sense and you can go D2C, direct to the consumer, via e-commerce, that to me is the way to play the game. Then you can control your margins much better. You actually have much more control of the customers. You know your customers and who they are, and you can deliver to them the experience you want.
Exactly. Well, you get direct analytics. You get exactly who's buying, where they're buying from, what they're clicking on, how they got there. You can find everything out. That's the interesting part about social media too. And like TikTok's an amazing tool for this. But yeah, it's true. If you can do direct to consumer, that's the gold.
So I don't want to scare people away, especially if you have a hope or a dream, right? And you want to be entrepreneurial in this, but I also tell you, brace for some pretty big storms, and make sure that you have a lot of capital, because that money will run dry, lickety split. And so you got to make sure you got a really good team and an accountant, and that are also, everybody has to be mission aligned and pulling in the same direction. Otherwise you will fail within a year.
All right. That's like the best advice ever. I love it.
Yeah.
So honest.
And that's it in food.
That's
And then,
food. Yeah.
yeah, that's food. And then, we also have an events business where we throw events, and that's back online again, which is really nice. And we're doing live events. I mentioned to you how for Whole Food Market stores, we were doing these 7-day immersion programs, and we do them in really cool locations in nature where people can like breathe and like get back in touch with just what it means to like get out of civilization and urbanness and concrete.
Be an animal.
Yeah, be an
animalistic
animal.
self. Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
Yeah. But so because of the experience I had throwing these with Whole Food Market team members in about 2017, we started doing them for the public as well.
Cool.
And so we just did one in Black Mountain, North Carolina, and we had like 91 people, and everybody was so excited to be there and be with like-minded people, and learn this information and play hard and work hard. It was an epic 6 days. And so we have another one on the books for October in Sedona, Arizona.
Oh, pretty. Love it.
In the Red Rocks. It's up in this little resort, or I should say retreat. It's not a resort. There's no TVs. There's nothing fancy. It's very austere.
Love it.
It's a blast. But yeah, so we have those going on, and those have been successful for a long time. We've kind of figured out the formula there. As far as how many people do we need to make this profitable? What's the price point that, makes sense, that people aren't overpaying, but it still allows us to actually, run a business and pay our team members and all that. We also have an online coaching program that people who are looking for a little more hand-holding, looking for a community. We have some terrific coaches that meet once a week live, right? Via Zoom. And then we have all kinds of workbook activities and our own little kind of Facebook community, but it's not in Facebook. It's another great kind of community called Mighty Networks that we started. And trying to think what else we got going on on the entrepreneurial side.
Yeah.
Things. We got the podcast, right?
Got the podcast. I mean, the podcast is amazing. And what I'm hearing the most is that you've just diversified. And I think that's like the best advice is to just diversify what you're doing and like put your passion and your mission into like a array of things so that all your eggs aren't, for instance, in your food product basket.
There's a caveat to that though. And let me say, and we also have a meal planner, an online meal planner for people that want to plug in their likes and dislikes, and then it will spit out all these recipes for you. And then with grocery lists, and because we're also connected with Instacart, you can have it drop shipped to your door. So we try and take away all the pain points.
Right. All the excuses.
Absolutely. But I will say this. Yes, I feel very fortunate that we are so diversified. But know that this diversification happened very slowly, very strategically. And I have incredible people on my team that are helping make all this happen. So don't go into it with, you and your buddy and try and diversify and create all these things, because you're going to stretch yourselves way too thin. I would tell you to focus on one thing, do it gangbusters well. And then when you feel like you've got it dialed in, then start to diversify and get that nice array of different, products and different businesses in your portfolio. But at first, just try and do one thing, do it well, and try and make it profitable.
Yes, that's the best advice, because it's easy to look at you now and be like, oh my gosh, he's doing all these things. People say that to me all the time. And it's like, it started with one thing, and it started with me.
And so like for me, and it's really actually fun revisiting this. For me, it all started with a book, right? I wrote a book that I poured my heart and soul into. I did a pilot study with 62 people to show the efficacy of eating this way, and with before and after results. I got a medical director I got a laboratory. So we were doing venous blood draws for everything for total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, triglycerides, and then also fasting glucose. We also did before and after weight. We did before and after blood pressure. And we also did a step test, a 3-minute step test, so we could see what their heart rate did, right? Before and after in 3 minutes. And I did a 6-week, I had 62 guinea pigs for 6 weeks. Then I had another 40 for 4 weeks. And I had another like 10 for 2 weeks. And it was so much work, but it gave me this treasure trove of information that now allowed me to write the book with the confidence that I know this works, because everybody that did this got almost the exact same results. Some did, some did phenomenally well, but nobody gained weight. Nobody's cholesterol, went up. Nobody's, so I knew in my heart of hearts, this works. And it worked on healthy people who thought they were healthy.
Right.
Right. And the thing is, my father's patients, they got success, but they had their backs up against the wall. Right. They were the walking dead.
Right.
Literally. And my youngest was 14 years old and my oldest was 77. So and half were men, half were women. We had teachers, doctors, we had lawyers, we had professional athletes. So it was a really nice kind of gambit of people. Yeah. So again, focus in, do one thing, do it insanely well. And then from that authenticity and from that experience, seeds will take root and flourish. And let me give you another great example. And if you haven't had him on the show, you should.
Okay.
And that's Adam Sudd.
I haven't had him on.
Plant-based addict. Incredible story. Who he, I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say he became a drug addict and basically hit rock bottom, and now is the plant-based addict, right? And has gone from 350 pounds to about 180. He's now chiseled. He has now started, he's doing research with the Eyes. The Eyes, the Alzheimer's solution.
Oh yeah.
Some of the best kind of brain doctors on the planet. And they're finishing a paper right now showing, because they've gone out and they've partnered with different rehab centers to show what can happen when you are fueling these people that are trying to rehabilitate themselves with a whole food plant-based diet.
Oh yeah.
And it's an act
so
of
interesting.
Love. Yes. And the results they're getting are just jaw-dropping. And so this is a guy that he just put his heart and soul into first recovering himself.
Right.
And then he became a health coach. And then he's just finished a book. And now he's doing this work with rehab centers. But he's carving this very specific niche.
Right.
Working with people that are drug addicts.
Yeah. It's like finding your niche. That's perfect. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Rip, you ready for our speed round?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
These are my favorite.
How much time do I have?
It'll take like 4 minutes. So basically you just need to answer the first thing that comes to mind. If you want to elaborate a little, that's cool. But just first thing that comes to mind, don't think too much.
Yeah.
Starts off kind of easy. What's your favorite plant-based meal right now?
Rip's Big Bowl cereal. I have it every morning and I've had it every morning for the last almost 40 years. And now that it's commercialized, I just, and I've got 3 different flavors of it. That's it.
That's it. What kind of milk do you drink with it?
I drink Pacific brand oat milk.
Oat milk. Okay.
Oat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in it. Yeah. And it's clean.
Clean oat milk. I love it. I love Pacific. They're a really good brand. What's one single thing you would change about the world if you could?
No more wars.
No
more wars. Let's understand that we're all on the same team, and we're all human beings.
Yeah.
Just looking for love and compassion, and trying to be the best versions of ourselves. And so, let's not get greedy, and let's not, there's more than enough for everybody on this planet right now. There's a Gandhi quote. There's enough for everyone's needs, but not for everyone's greeds. And I think this greed it's really unfortunate. And I see what's going on right now with Russia and Ukraine, and that epitomizes, the Russia's greed to basically take over Ukraine, and leave them alone. Let them do their own thing.
Yeah. I agree. All right. What is your biggest passion outside of your job?
Biggest passion would be my family. My family, my wife, and I have 3 young children, 8, 12, and 14.
Oh, wow. They're giving you a run for your money, I'm sure.
They are. It's the hardest thing. It's also one of the greatest things.
I love that. What would your other career be if you didn't end up doing what you do now? Like, what would you, if you had a second chance to not be a firefighter, to not do what you're doing, what would you do?
If I had to pick something else, I'd probably be now that I've got a taste of entrepreneurship, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And because of my competitive nature, this to me is like the closest thing to being able to continue to compete. Right. And remember, I used to be I swam, I was a competitive swimmer. I was a professional triathlete for a decade. And then as a firefighter, I continued to compete as a triathlete for another almost 10 years at a world-class level. So I love the black and whiteness of competition, and whoever crosses the finish line first wins, right? Yeah. And there's not too much more that you can say about that. But I'll tell you this, I could see, I have fallen in love with pickleball. So I would love to be a professional pickleball player.
Oh my God, you and everyone else. It's so funny.
Oh my God, it is a blast. But no, it would be starting a business and being an entrepreneur. There's not, you feel every day, you feel so alive, and there's so many highs and lows.
Everything's on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would tell me to do everything you can to be as present as you can.
Mic drop. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that, and I still have a hard time doing it, is being present in the moment, whether it's with my kids, whether it's with my wife, whether it is in the business, and just, all right, let's focus on what we're doing right here, right now, while we're alive. This is it. I think it's one of the reasons why I love swimming, biking, running, mountain biking, pickleball, because when you're doing it, you have to be in it, and you can't be thinking about, all right, what do I got to do with Kroger tomorrow, and are we good? And when was that Whole Foods, that next promo, and did we get all the paperwork in for that? It's just like,
you're just in them. Yeah,
you are singularly focused. And the thing that really, to me, more than anything, is mountain biking. And where I mountain bike, it is insanely tough. Right. The roots, the rocks, the ledges,
scary
stuff like that. And so you have no choice but to be just right in the moment. Where's my next turn? What am I thinking? What do I got to do with my right hand? Am I braking with my left, my right? Am I using my seat drop to go down, to go up? I mean, it is full on, like, in the moment.
Yeah. Like everything's at risk. Like, you got to focus.
Oh yeah. Am I in the right gear? Do I need to go up? Okay. 10 feet ahead. I got to make that jump. Okay. I'm going down a gear. My seat drop's going down. I'm gonna, break a little bit with my left hand, then release with my right hand. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. 2 more questions. Whoops. What or who is your biggest inspiration right now?
I'll say right now,
Yeah.
the biggest inspiration is Robbie Ballinger. That crazy cat who is plant-based, he just outran a Tesla here in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
He
saw
ran
that.
242 miles in 77 plus hours. And I went out to support him and see what he was going through, and the mental tenacity that he had, the sense of purpose. And he, bless him, he picked the wrong dates to do this because the temperatures each and every day were 93 degrees.
Oh shit.
And the humidity was through the roof. I was outside just cheering him on. And after 5 minutes of just being outside, I was like, I got to get back in my air conditioned car. Right. And this amazing young man who at the age of 37 did this feat, and he did not crumble. And it would have been so easy to crumble and say, you know what,
why am I doing this? Yeah.
But if you could have seen that the heat and the roads, he started out in the Texas hill country. He had the elevation gain was over 14,000 feet.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was so insanely rolling. And what he had to go through, I can't even imagine. And, he maybe took an hour or 50-minute cat naps here and there over the course of 70, almost 80 hours. But anyway, so right now he is my go-to hero and really inspired me.
I love that. I'm definitely going to have to look him up. Maybe have him on the podcast. That story sounds crazy. Okay. Final thing I ask every single guest before I let you go. What are your final words of wisdom for our audience today?
I will say this, and, I think it's fair to say that the last couple of years have been pretty tough and very, very difficult. And we're constantly in life being tested. And do your best to become resilient. And don't let things get you down to the point to where you cannot see living another day or going forward. Being challenged in life is absolutely inevitable. So embrace that, right? But being defeated is optional.
Awesome. Let's leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chef May. Bye.
Bye. All right. Huge shout out to our guest, Rip. You're so amazing. Love you so much. And huge shout out to you guys for making it this far into the episode. If you love this episode, please share with a friend and leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts. The reviews literally mean so much to the show and so much to getting it out there to the people who need it most. And yeah, again, take care of yourselves, take care of your heart, and don't forget about that free download over on www.chefbay.kitchen for my 6 easy food hacks to have a better period. Okay, you guys, have a great day. Take care of yourself and go give someone a hug today. I think that's a good one. Go give someone a hug. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye.